Hello, hello. Dude, the copy pasta goes hard. Okay. What's up, everybody? Don't ulge me right at the bat. I want to say, I saw that one chatter like 4 minutes ago who said happy 40th birthday. I will not forget this. I will not forget this. I will remember this. I was watching. I was here. What's up, everybody? Finally 23. Exactly. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. That is the spirit. finally legally allowed to drink alcohol and stuff like that, you know? Finally 18. Can't believe it. Finally, the day has come. Rob Job, thank you so much for the 5. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now you can stop drinking water, finally. Thank you, whoever that was. All right, well, the number is 29, in case anyone is actually wondering. The number is 29. Which, I don't know, I guess, is that old? I don't feel old. I guess that's what matters. I don't know. Old. Okay, apparently it's old. Apparently, according to the internet, 29 is almost dead. It's almost over. All right, anyways. You will always be younger than Farfa, but don't tell him, of course. Yeah, I won't tell him. Everyone older than me is old. That's how that works. That's, you know what? That's fair enough. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So everyone who's younger than me is allowed to call me old, I suppose. All right, you guys. Thank you all. Appreciate you guys. Welcome to the last stream. Not ever, but the last stream before I leave for Worlds. It's gonna be a little bit of a shorter one because it's my birthday, so I'm gonna go and meet with my parents and some friends later. But it will be the last stream this week because I'm gonna be leaving for Worlds tomorrow. My flight is on Thursday, but I'm staying at Emra's house tomorrow, so I gotta go because Emra lives way closer to the airport than I do. So, yep. After today, we will see each other next week, probably Wednesday, because my flight back from Seattle is on Monday. Thank you, Solitaire. Appreciate that. So my flight back is on Monday, but because of the time differences, I will land on Tuesday at some point throughout the day. Yeah. Yeah, I'm flying from Frankfurt. Yeah, I'm flying from Frankfurt. Which if I don't sleep at Emra's house, I have to like the train rides to the airport are like at least 1.5 or 2 hours. So it means I have to get up very early. So I'm staying at Emra's. So yeah, we're gonna try our best. Obviously, this year at Worlds, we'll see if it works out. But yeah, Lippy, thank you for the gifts. Appreciate that. And Victor J Wilson, thank you for the 13. So the plan for today is relatively simple. We're gonna have like just a short little chill stream. We're gonna do the warm up. We're gonna talk about some things, and then we're gonna do a tier list of my first impression of the upcoming format, talking about some decks. And that'll be pretty much it. There's not that much. Like it's gonna be like I don't know. I've been aiming for like a solid 2 hours today, so that's what we're gonna do, and then we will return next week. Tier list on a Tuesday. Yeah, the trick is we simply don't tell the YouTube viewers that it actually happened on a Tuesday. All right, like when we record the tier list later, all you guys have to do is like spam something like tier list Wednesday KEKW or something, and then we can make them believe it didn't actually happen on a Tuesday. But we are kind of limited in our options on when we can record it this week, so it's gotta happen on a Tuesday this time, unfortunately. All right, you guys, let's warm up. Let's warm up. See if we can get 4 digits on my birthday. Check pinned message. I'll check it in a moment. Ooh, I've seen this card. This is the Spirit Mirror. Something Spirit of Yaksha? No. Spirit of Mirror of Yata. Not Yaksha. Ralm Howard, thank you for the 2 months. Appreciate you. Something Fortress Warrior? Yeah. Is this the Phantasm Spiral Dragon? Yeah. Yes, it is. Evil Twin. It's not Home. Boo Boo Game? Is it Boo Boo Game? Yeah. Blue Eyes Jet Dragon? Pretty sure. Yeah. This is Molten. Is it Molten Destruction? It's I thought it was the I thought it was a different card. But okay. You are of course correct. All right, Satellar Knight. Oh, Constellar Diamond. Constellar Diamond. Kuluza, thank you for the 11 months. Appreciate that. That is Elfuria, Elphobia, Pelica. One of those. It's the Ojama Yellow. I have no idea what it's called. League of Uniform Nomenclature. Strikes? Nope. Treaty? That one. This feels like a Six Samurai. Actually, does it? I'm not sure. Oh no. I don't think it's a Six Samurai. No. Key Man the Key Warrior. Alright, cool. It's not looking good for a good performance on my birthday on this one. I'm not gonna lie. We are not on great pace right now. But we're getting, like, who Megalol are all these cards? Am I right? Guard Dragon Shield? Pearly. Okay, which memory is it? Happy memory? Pretty memory. Yeah. Launcher Commander. Pit Knight. Early? Please be early. Nice. Could have been Philly as well. Triamid Pulse? No. Triamid Fortress? Yeah, okay. Mm. Ooh, is that a Musketeer card? It would be a spell trap, I think. Crown. Crooked Crown. Alright. I think this is the Vernusil card? Maybe it's not. No, I don't think it is. Oh, this is the like Spirit of Winds or something, or Breeze. Spirit of the Breeze? No. Oh, it is a Vernusil. No. Spirit of the Fall Wind. Okay, well, wasted a lot of time on that one. Gamiel, Master Craftsman. Yeah. Oh, why did I even zoom? This feels so familiar. Yeah. Bomber Dragon is such a cool card, man. I wish that was the power level that Link 4 would operate at. Short Circuit? Grave Keepers. Nobleman. Could be a lot of things at this point. Is that a Thunder Dragon card? I don't actually know. Thunder Speed Summon. I believe this is Rose Lover. Yep. What is this? The Pump Princess? This one? Yeah. Well, is that the Deer Servant? Yeah. All right. Ooh. Actually, no, I have no idea. I feel like I've seen this though. Elemental Recharge. I feel like I've seen this card. Sylvan. Hmm. Is that not Princess Sprite? Or is that a spell trap? I'm pretty sure it's Princess Sprite on a spell trap. Flourishing. Yeah, okay, dude. All right, dude. I haven't seen these cards before. I've seen this card before. I have no excuse. I have no excuse. Actually, I have. My excuse is I'm old now. This also feels very familiar. Somehow. Flintlock. Yeah. Robin. It's not Robin Goblin. Good Goblin? No, it's not Good Goblin Housekeeping. Hard Selling Goblin. That one. Yeah. Marin says. All right, you do the rest. Blue Slug. Not Blue Slug. Seahorse. Seahorse. That does not look like a seahorse. I don't know if I'm the first one to point that out. But last time I checked, that is not what seahorses look like. Battle Guard Howling. I think. Yeah. Rescue Ace. Fire Attacker. Yosenju, comma, 1, 2, 3. It's not a Yosenju? Dual Avatar? Kokoku? Alright then. I see how it is. Dude, oh god, I thought that was literally the card I tried to do 3 cards ago. Morningstar. No? Red Moon? Same thing, dude. Gren. World Legacy, World Hand. Wait, what? World Armor? I swear I thought this was called World Hand. I would have bet money on it. Swing of Memories. I don't know. Shinobird. Not Shinobird Crane again. I feel like I've skipped this guy like 3 times last week. Oh, this one I've seen. This one I've seen. Cosmic. No, it's not Cosmic Compass. Ally of Justice. Cosmic Gateway. That one. Elite Attack Force. Oh, this is like renewal. Dark renewal. 796. Almost 800. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's like, I feel like, hear me out. Before you say old and washed, all right? I feel like our average has been getting better. Yes or no? Escape Lamau? Okay, dude. You said Dark Coffin on Dark Renewal. Lamau? Kick W? Huh? Do not think I didn't see that. All right, guys. It is a Dark Armed Dragon angle. Ooh, even higher level than this. Good luck with this one. Uh-oh. So it's a dark monster that's higher than level 7. The attack is between 15 and 28, and the defense is lower than 1,000, and it's between 2009 and 2014. Dark End? It can't be Dark End because it is just an effect monster. It doesn't have any other subtypes, like no synchro, no extra deck card, no flip or something like that. It's just a regular effect monster. So, Destiny Hero Plasma. I'm pretty sure Plasma is older than 2008. Plasma should be, yeah, Plasma is 2007, but the stats would have fit. Not bad, but it's also not a warrior. Uranus? No, Uranus. It's not Uranus. Wicked Avatar? Doesn't Wicked Avatar have question mark? Yeah, that's not it, because it's got more than 1,500 attack. So, it's a level 8 Dark Monster with less than 2,800 attack. Hydrolander? Isn't Hydrolander exactly 2,800? No, Hydrolander is 3,000 even. Yeah, it's not Hydrolander. Prophecy? Prophecy. Destroyer is a level 6. Grapha? Grapha has too much defense. But not, Grapha was not a bad guess. Red Root? That's 4,000. Red Scythe? No. Reaper of Prophecy? No. Jupiter? Too much defense. They all got too much defense. It needs to be something with low defense. I've summoned this card like 50 times, and I couldn't even think of it. You've summoned this card 50 times? What does that mean? Is it a meta-relevant card? Should I remember this card? Will I know this card when I see it? Norleris? Norleris is older than 2008. Ballardrock? Too much defense. Also too new. Probably not. Augustus? No. Any Dark Lords? They seem to all have pretty hefty defense points, most of them. Shadow Vampire? No. A gimmick puppet? A gimmick puppet. A gimmick puppet. Gimmick puppet. No, they all don't fit. Reptilian Vasky? Okay, who said they've summoned this card 50 times? Who said that? How and why? Dragon Ruler format? Oh, you're actually right. This is the card that outed Dracosac tokens, and so I remember people I think did talk about this. You could tribute, no, I never played it back then, but now that you say it, I remember people mentioning it as like a way to out Dracosac, because it would get 2 tokens, and then you could Vasky the tokens. Unironically, if this card was level 7, it probably would have been pretty good in that format. If you could have turned it into a rank 7 or a level 8 synchro, it probably could have been pretty nice tech card for going second in the Dragon Mirror. But yeah. You Bell Killer, Pog. If your opponent ends on you Bell plus Phantom of you Bell, you contribute both to summon Vasky. All right, cool, good one, not bad. Sparky, thank you for the 3 months, appreciate that. Happy birthday. Do you have a pick for the TCG Worlds winning deck? First of all, thank you. Second of all, it's an awkward position to make a guess, because there are, I think, a couple of decks that are actually quite strong in the TCG Worlds format right now. I think it's gonna be like Snake Eye is pretty good, especially with Fire King. My guess is that because it's one Wanted, one Snake Eye Ash, the premier way to play Snake Eye might just be Fire King, because they don't have the Azamina cards at Worlds, because we don't have them yet, right? So I think Snake Eye Fire King is a pretty good shot at winning. U-Bell is also pretty strong. Like, U-Bell is basically full power, and you have to, like, that's something you've got to respect. Fire King without Volcanics? Yeah, Fire King is fine without Volcanics. I think Volcanics is good. Volcanics is a very cool card, but Volcanics is not that important overall to the Fire King deck. Like, you can replace it. You can play around it. 2 Kirin is fine. 2 Kirin is fine. This is TCG. Yeah, we're talking TCG right now. So I think U-Bell is very good. I think Fire King Snake Eye is pretty strong. I think Ritual Beast is something to be respected, because obviously they got Protoss in both formats. They only have 2 shifters because of OCG list, but the yeah, that deck is pretty good. And Tenpai is like I think Tenpai has the following problem. I think, first of all, one field spell makes it more exploitable, but I think the bigger issue is the fact that, like, people are going to be scared to play Tenpai because it's a very short tournament and, like, only very few players. So in theory, it's relatively likely that people will simply know what you play after a couple of rounds. Now, from my personal experience, I can say that does not really that's not really how it works. Like, when you're playing in Worlds, you will not get to know everyone's deck, like, super easily, but it's like you will know about some of them at some point, right? Because you can just, like, look left, look right when you're playing or something. So that's scary. Playing Tenpai at Worlds sounds insane to me. No control over your results. I mean, no control is not true, but one thing that is true is that Tenpai is the kind of deck that a lot of it is about how well your opponent also plays against it, right? Like, sometimes it's really about, like, just using your interruptions correctly against Tenpai, which obviously at the World Championships you expect people have to you expect people to play well against Tenpai, right? To use their interruptions optimally, and that's rough. Do players still have to return decks once they finished playing? I don't know how that's handled these days. I mean, the last time I've played the TCG Worlds was 2019, which is 5 years ago, so I don't know how it was last year. I assume so. I don't remember anyone bringing their deck box back into the break room last year. I don't think they had them. I think they leave them there. The new TCG list doesn't impact Worlds. No, it's not. It's not in effect for Worlds, which is a good thing. Well, like for the players, it's a good thing, right? For the viewers, like for us, it would be more exciting, obviously, if they were playing with the new list. Like we could see a World Championship without Appaloosa and such. That'd be interesting. But for the sake of the players that were obviously preparing for the World Championship for weeks, like seeing the list, like the World Championship is next weekend, right? Like this upcoming weekend, in 4 days, literally. Oh god, that's soon. In 4 days is when day one of World starts. So if they had just announced this list, like they announced it 3 days ago, and then said like, yeah, this is going to be your list for the World Championship next week, that would have been crazy. That would have been crazy. As a TCG competitor, that would have been insane. It's one bonfire in the OCG. I'm pretty sure it's 2 bonfire. It's for Snake Eye at Worlds, it's gonna be, they still have Apo and they still have Lacrima for Worlds, which is also gonna be another big deal, right? The Fiendsmith engine is gonna be very strong at Worlds, obviously. But it's 1 Wanted, 1 Snake Eye Ash, and 2 bonfires. And then also for the Fire King cards, there's gonna be no Volcanics and 2 Kirin. But other than that, they have pretty much everything. So yeah. All right, here's a couple of things that I wanted to quickly mention. Here's one thing that I thought was cool. I don't know exactly what it means, but I saw this yesterday. They have made a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Twitter account called Yu-Gi-Oh! Retro Games. Welcome to the official Yu-Gi-Oh! Retro Games X account. Follow us to stay updated on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection and Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG retro-themed products. This is something I thought was cool, because who knows what that means? Who knows what that means? It might mean more support for retro formats in the future, which I think would be a cool thing. They haven't announced anything like that. You know, it could just be nothing. You know, but what is Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection, by the way? Is that something they've announced already? Because I felt like that was the first time I heard that. So it's just something they haven't announced yet, I feel like. You think they're gonna like remake old video games at some point? That'd be cool. I'd be down to like for example, people always keep telling me Forbidden Memories was like the best game ever, and I've never played it. So if they like remake that, I'd be down to like stream it, maybe try it out. Literally the worst? Is it the worst? People been I hear like it's, some people like it. But anyways, I just wanted to mention it. The Nintendo World Championship games were cool. They actually were cool. The every year back in the day we got that like a new DS game, and they would have like national championships and world championships for it. It was pretty nice. Whoever told you that game is the best is an absolute devil. Okay, I thought that was a popular opinion. I didn't know that was a I didn't know that was a hot take. Gamma, thank you. My top 5 retro formats. It's a tough question. I definitely can't give you them in order. I don't know exactly, but a couple that come to mind. I do thoroughly enjoy Edison, but that's like a very popular one already. So I'm sure you know about that one already and you've played it. I think Tengu Plant format is also very fun. I've been playing some Tengu Plant format in recent weeks, and I think it's very, very fun. And like, even though it's called Tengu Plant format, I actually do think it has more to it. Like, there's a bunch of decks that are playable in Tengu Plant format, which is pretty cool. I personally, there are some formats that I really like, but that I don't think will end up being popular retro Time Wizard formats, simply because they lack one thing that's really important for that, and that's deck diversity. But I really I like the two Dragon Ruler formats, Baby Ruler and Ravine Ruler, and I also really like Necros. Those are formats though that I don't think will get huge Time Wizard like attendance or attention, simply because I think one very important factor for a Time Wizard format is that you can play multiple different decks. Because being able to play multiple different decks, and I think that is the main selling point, or the main driving force in making Edison format so popular, is not because the gameplay in Edison is the best out there. It's good, but it's not the best out there. It's not the best you will get in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. But it simply is one of the most diverse formats that Yu-Gi-Oh has ever had. Because it, like, in order for a retro format to be good for Time Wizard purposes, I feel like it needs a lot of like replayability, and it needs to be very fun in the long term, right? Like, it needs to be a format that you can go back to over and over and over and over again, and always be able to maybe play something different, experience something different, try something different, and have it work. And I don't think that's something you can do in like Dragon Ruler format, because like, playing a Dragon Ruler format every once in a while is super fun, right? I have Dragon Ruler decks built for Baby Ruler and Ravine Ruler. Sitting down with someone who played back in the day, or maybe even didn't play back in the day, and just play a couple of Dragon Ruler formats, mirror matches, is really fun. But it's not something that I would like necessarily say is like suited for Time Wizard, because if you go to a Time Wizard event at a YCS and enter a Dragon Ruler format tournament, you are basically just expecting to play Dragon Ruler mirrors all the way through, right? Which, maybe it's fun one time, but are you really gonna like go to the next YCS and you're gonna want to like do that again? You know, like, it's a little weird, for that matter, right? So those kind of formats, some of my personal favorites, but not really suited for Time Wizard play, I think. Some formats that I actually didn't like that much, or like, I like them, but they're not my favorite, but I think they are more suited for Time Wizard play, are, I think, 2012 Rabbit Insector Windup and some other stuff in that mix. I think could be something that is fun in Time Wizard, even though it's not the best format ever, but it's like, it's got some different decks to it. There's also like Chaos Dragons and stuff like that, and Karakuri decks, and so on and so forth. So there's some room for like diversity there. It's less than in Edison, but it's still there. Then there is, I think, all of the formats that were basically revolving around Mermail and Fire, like whether it's 2013 or whether it's, I always forget which one is Meadowlands format. Is Meadowlands 2013 or 2014 one? I don't remember. Like, one of them is called Fire Water format, one of them is called Meadowlands format. I don't really know. Meadowlands is the one before Dragon Rulers. Okay, that one I think is really cool. And then Fire Water is after Dragon Rulers. Okay, yeah. So both of them are cool, actually. Like, I think early 2013 pre-Dragon Rulers is a cool format. I think post-Dragon Rulers is also a cool format, because you've got the fire decks, you've got the water decks, you've got spell books, you've got all kinds of other things. And then 2014 Hat format is a format that I actually, I don't think Hat format is that great gameplay wise, because there's just a lot of decks that there's like two kinds of decks in Hat format. There's the decks that try to set 5 cards, not in a stun way, but still in a very disruptive way. Like, it's like Yugioh or Hat decks are like, they are fun to play against in some ways, but sometimes they're not that fun, because they will just like throw cards at you. Like, they'll throw trap cards at you at every possible moment. Yeah, but like that's one kind of deck in hat format. The other kind of deck in hat format is like Giga combo abuse soul charge as hard as possible, right? Like whether it's Infernity or Mermail or Sylvan or whatever, which are like honestly, if you pop off with those decks, they are fun. But if you are sitting across from that, sometimes it's not that fun. So I think hat format, while it has deck diversity, I think gameplay wise it's worse than something like Edison or Tengu Plant or even Insector Rabbit Windup formats. I still think Tengu is the most fun old format. I think Tengu Plant is very, very fun. I think it's just a matter of Edison format kind of like took the spotlight. For I don't know what the reason for that is. I feel like it's just what some people selected as their favorite format to play, and then they made it popular, or people just agreed and were like, yeah, let's play that. Because one huge factor in retro formats is not just how good the format is, it's also quite simply, do you have people to play it with, right? If you don't, if you, the format you think is the best or the most fun doesn't end up being that fun if no one has a deck for it. And I feel like at some point, Edison just became that format where you can expect to go to a tournament, whether it's a regional or a YCS or whatever, you can always expect people to show up and have an Edison deck. It's not the same with Tengu Plant, right? Like if you want to just have a deck on you to be able to play retro format, your best bet is to simply have an Edison deck. Because you simply go and find people and they will have an Edison deck, right? But Tengu Plan is also very good. Edison also has the allure of being a historically unexplored format. It's genuinely mind blowing to me how there keeps being new decks in Edison format. Like every single year or every single month, there's like people doing well with Edison format decks, right? Like in the beginning of Edison format, it was like people were discovering decks like that were just super solid. Like I don't know, Vayu Turbo or Zombies or something like that. I feel like those were decks that people discovered relatively quickly, but then there's like more interesting stuff popping up every single month or whatever. Like decks like Amaryllis is like a top tier deck in Edison at the moment, which is like really cool that no one would have ever thought. And then like decks like there's like different versions of Frog decks. Like I feel like every time I see a big tournament for Edison format being hosted, I feel like there's a new variant of a Frog deck that just does well. Right? You guys remember the Frog burn deck with like the turbo cannon? And I feel like at now that the new one is the one that uses Fishborg Blaster and stuff, which I had a couple of friends over at my house last Friday, and we played some Edison format. I played that deck. It's very fun. The Frog Fishborg Blaster deck, like it's pretty mind blowing how they keep like developing new stuff for Edison format. It's pretty nice. Yeah. Doom Domo, thank you for the 3 months. Appreciate that. What do you think of Watt Tenpai as a deck? I know the effect of one Watt card, and that's Watt Hopper. I know Watt Hopper has like is like Dupe Frog. That's all. And I assume that's not what you mean. I assume you're not gonna dupe lock your opponent in a Tenpai deck. So yeah, I don't know. I know that in all seriousness, I do know Watts have some like crazy battle phase cards, but I don't think that's better than pure Tenpai probably. But I can't tell you for sure because I don't know exactly what those cards do. I guess you're trying to. What is that one? Isn't there a Watt card that when it attacks directly, your opponent can't do stuff for the rest of the turn? Like, are you trying to normal summon that, swing directly, and then activate Sangan Kaiman? What giraffe? Yeah. Anyways, They could approach Edison the same way they approached old school RuneScape. What does that mean? What does that mean? What do you mean by they could approach Edison? Make a new ban list and new old cards that don't have nearly as much power creep that ended up happening. So you want them to take Edison format, make it its own format, and basically keep developing on it? I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll do that. I think that's too much work, quite frankly. I think just like I think obviously I get where you're coming from, right? I get where you're coming from because like saying like, oh, this old format is good, but if they like maybe improved it a little bit, like I don't know, ban oppression or ban trap dust shoot or something, those are two cards that come to mind that are really annoying to play against an Edison format, right? So you like you want them to take the format and basically develop it like it's its own game. But I don't know if that's I don't think that's what they would do. I think I don't know. I don't think that's what they do. But I do agree that I would find it interesting if they created more alternative ways to enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh, right? But my guess is just that they are a little bit afraid of taking away from the main product lines, right? Like I feel like they still want and always want their main focus to be the one Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. And I guess kind of like prevent a situation like in Magic happening, right? Which doesn't it's not only bad, but I felt like as someone who has only played Magic very very little, whenever I check out Magic, it can be a little bit confusing that there's so much different like formats going on. I'm sure for someone who is into Magic, it's super intuitive because once you're into it, like fine. But for like someone who isn't in there as like a barrier, I feel like it is a barrier of entry for Magic to be like, which format am I gonna play? Does this local shop that I go to have a tournament today? If yes, which format is it? Do I have a deck for that format? Is it legal for that format? Will there even be enough people for the format that I like? It's like I feel like it is also a barrier of entry. So where Yu-Gi-Oh has the barrier of entry of like being too complicated or being very complex, I feel like that is one of the things that Magic might struggle with. At least that was my impression. Because there's like so many different resources out there for different formats, and you never really know as someone who isn't into Magic of whether this applies to you and what does that mean? Like as someone who's never played Magic, what does like modern format mean? What does legacy format mean? Like if it says Magic legacy format and you have a I don't know some kind of starter deck, like can you go there? No idea. I've tried to get into Magic before, but couldn't figure out what the main format was. See, that's the thing. You would think it's standard, I think, because standard is the one where you have like a set rotation, and that's basically the one where the sets that keep coming out, they get added into, I think, standard format. But then whenever I mention standard format, everyone who knows even the slightest bit about Magic says like, no one really cares about standard, which is weird, right? I don't know. It's confusing right now. When I'm trying to talk about it, it's already confusing to me, and I feel like I'm not gonna like the infos I'm about to drop are probably not gonna be correct, right? So yeah. What I really don't like about Magic is that all casuals I know play Commander, and that's not competitive enough. I low key Commander is the Magic format that I've played the most because it seems to be the one that, like, when you just get together with a couple of people, it's the easiest one to do. As someone who isn't super into Magic, like, I don't have, like, I don't know that many, like, cards and stuff. I find Commander very stressful. It can be really fun, but I find it very stressful because, brother, like, I'm sitting there Thank you, Nat Toaster. I'm sitting there, like, for example, I think when we streamed the Gamescom LAN event, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was this year. The Gamescom LAN event, there I was playing at, like, after the event ended, I was playing a round of, like, with the Fallout Commander decks, right? With the Fallout Commander decks, we sat there to play a round of Commander with 4 people, right? And I'm like out there, I just unboxed this deck, right? I've never seen these cards before in my life. My deck is a Highlander deck, basically. Only one-ofs. Some lands are in there twice, I suppose, but, like, let's say my 100 card deck has like 90 one-ofs or something. So every single card I draw, I have to read and understand and see how they interact. And not only for my 100 card deck, but also for all other people involved. Like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what your deck does. I don't know what your deck does. I don't know what your deck does. I don't know what my deck does. And every single card is a one-of. And, like, it's too much, man. As someone who typically understands these kind of things relatively fast, it's I don't like Commander that much. Look, I don't know. I prefer to just go out there. I don't know. Look at like a meta breakdown for, like, the top tier decks in a format or something. Know what I have to expect. I can play a bunch of cards at 4 that I have to understand, and then, like, I can just go into a local tournament and just play against one person where I have to understand their one deck, and that's fine. So, like, Commander, I think, is very fun once you're really into it. Like, for people that are really into Magic and know, like, all the cards maybe in existence, or most of them, or, like, the relevant cards for Commander, right? I'm sure it's fine, but in the beginning, dude, it's just, dude. We were playing a round of Commander. It was Jonas Koschel, Lampy, and Leonard König, the 2 casters from the YCS. And unironically, after, like, 2 turns or something, like, after everyone had 2 turns, Lampy and Leo, they just zoned out. They didn't even pay attention anymore. They were just joking around. We lost them. They were not even paying attention to the game anymore because it was, like, too much for them. They didn't even bother. So, like, it didn't even feel like we were even trying to do anything. Like, they were just, like, they were gone. And I don't know, it wasn't that fun overall. And I feel like that's every Commander game I've ever witnessed as well, dude. Like, at some point, everyone is just about, like, making fun of each other and, like, and the memes and all that kind of stuff, which is also fun, I guess. But it's not my understanding of a competitive card game or anything like that. It's meant to be casual and talking to friends. Yeah, I guess. Maybe it's just that I have the wrong approach then. Maybe it's just not for me, because that is not, like, why I want to play a card game most of the time. Oh, yeah. Anyways, how did we get here? What were we talking about? Here's a cool thing that happened. Forbidden and Limited list, September 2nd, 2024. Effective from September 2nd, 2024. The next update after this will be in a few months. I've heard someone say, I posted this on Twitter. I posted this on Twitter, and someone quote tweeted it and said, "This is a step in the right direction." So I quote tweeted this saying, "I am ill," and they said, "This is a step in the right direction," which I'm trying to understand. We went from the next update will be no sooner than a couple months from now to the next update after this will be in a few months. Which, in my my interpretation as a native English speaker is that those 2 sentences are just the fucking same. That's the same, isn't it? It'll be no sooner than a few months from now, or it will be in a few months. Isn't that the freaking same? Doesn't that mean the exact same thing? Like, functionally, it's the same thing, right? Like, this could mean, this sentence right here could mean, I guess it means at least 2 months, right? It means at least 2, but it could be anything, right? Like, a few months is like anywhere from, like, I feel like 2 to 6. Few means 3 or more? Okay. Meaning of you. You. Cambridge Dictionary. A few. A little and a few are quantifiers meaning some. Little and few have negative meanings. We use them to mean not as much as may be expected or wished for. Oh, not as much as expected? Cambridge Dictionary putting me on some copium. Not as much as expected? Does that mean it's less months than expected? A small number, not many. Yeah. I don't think few, generally, I don't think it ties to a certain number. I think 2 can be a few. I think 3 can be a few. 4 can also be a few. Like, I don't think there is a, like, specific meaning to few. And I think the meaning before this was the exact same, right? Yeah, I don't know. So I think there was one reasonable response to my post, I think, was this. I don't have an issue with this at this point. Hearthstone had fixed dates, and it led to a couple of patches that were way too early and made the meta worse. What I want to see is they tell us the date once they have it, 2 to 4 weeks in advance, but they'll probably just leave this. I think this is... I think I can agree to this, because it means, like, right now, it's like, they don't need to tell me exactly when it happens right now, right? But, like, I would have liked a rough estimate, which I guess you could call this a rough estimate if you really wanted to. Well, actually, right now, this is a rough estimate, to be fair. And then maybe closer to... I guess we will see how they behave closer to the time, right? Like, closer to, let's say, Rage of the Abyss releases in October, and then a couple of weeks into that format, people are going to ask the question, you know, what about, like, YCS Bologna, which is going to happen towards the end of November, right? YCS Bologna is November 22nd to November 24th. So this is like a solid almost 2 months after Rage of the Abyss. It's more like 1.5 months after Rage of the Abyss. So I feel like at this point, it would be reasonable not to expect the ban list before this, but maybe to expect them to communicate whether, let's say it's the start of November, can we prepare for Bologna under the current ban list, or can we expect one beforehand? They could say, like, okay, the next one will be at the end of November, right? Late November is something that they could announce. And that would be, I guess, it wouldn't be great, because then Bologna would be Snake Eye format. But it would be good in the way that at least they communicate, hey, Bologna will be under this ban list, right? That'd be nice. But yeah, I guess it will remain. We will see. We will see how this will turn out. I hope that they do. I hope that they do a couple of. Basically, they should give us these infos more like step by step, right? Like, whatever. Drop the list. Say a few months from now, and then, like, at some point give us a more specific date or time. Didn't the last list take like 4 months? There's no way. Yeah, but usually lists don't... They are not interconnected like that. It's not like the last one took 4 months, so the next one is also going to take 4 months. That's not how it works. But yeah. All right. But I just thought part of me thought it was funny that they just threw a few months in there again. But part of me also thought it was kind of cringe, and I was hoping for it to be better than that. But yeah. They need enough time to sell Azamina Snake Eye. I mean, they were willing to hit the Fiendsmith cards like 40 days after release or whatever. Like Lacrima was the fastest ban of a Yu-Gi-Oh card ever. So that's cool. At least, you know, it shows some things are going right. At least. Was it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure 46 days is the fastest ban ever. I think Farfa said that during our podcast. And to be fair, I'm just assuming Farfa's information is backed up by a source, which it may very well be I made it the fuck up. I don't know. How much is the Fiendsmith combo impacted with the Lacrima ban? We talked about this yesterday on stream, and I have a YouTube video prepared for this. So we can't talk about it in depth right now because I have something else planned now. But feel free to go !YouTube. That video should be up relatively soon, where we discuss the Fiendsmith package after the ban list now. Long story short, I still think it's good. They're still good cards, but they lose a lot of value, especially in non-Fiend decks. In Fiend decks, they are still really strong. In non-Fiend decks, they get significantly worse, in my opinion, which I think is overall a good thing. Well, yeah. What we are doing now, chat, I have prepared a little tier list. You know, we love to do some tier listing every now and then, especially when a new format hits the TCG. And I want to preface this by saying that I'm going to be sharing my initial thoughts and predictions on the format. This is without any testing being done or anything like that. At this point, I've had 3 days to think about this list. I've talked to some people about their opinions on the upcoming format. I've already started to talk to some people about what they think will be good at YCS Lil, which is in this exact format. And here I'm going to share some of my thoughts on how some of these decks' positions in the meta change or not change after this new Forbidden Limited list. These are sorted in no particular order. I actually just threw them all into the list, and I think it's random. But we'll go through these one by one. We'll spend some more time on some of the ones where I think it's worth talking about it more. But yeah, let's go through it. And actually, let me move one deck to the start of the discussion because most people are going to be interested in this or in my stance on this deck in particular, I guess. So really quick, my first impression on pure Snake Eye. And we're going to talk about other variations of Snake Eye later, but pure Snake Eye, I do believe is still a playable deck. It did not die on this ban list, which is what a lot of people wanted, and that's unfortunate for these people, me included. However, I do not believe that Snake Eye is the best deck of the format anymore. That is my first impression. My prediction is that pure Snake Eye remains a playable deck. I do not think it is the best deck anymore. We'll talk about which other decks I think fit into that category better. I do think that Snake Eyes is still a top tier contender. I simply think that there are better options, and that is all it takes. All it takes for a deck to severely fall off in popularity is for it to just have one better option. If there is one other deck that is just slightly better than Snake Eyes, that will tremendously drive down the representation of Snake Eye because people played Snake Eyes because it was the best deck. And because people thought it was the best deck. So if people think Yubel is a better deck now, then I think the majority of people just trying to play the best deck in the room will just gravitate towards Yubel. So I think Snake Eye is going to be a top tier contender. I think it is strong. But I personally don't see myself playing it, not just because I don't like Snake Eye, but even if I was just objectively trying to find the best deck for Lil, I don't think it would be Snake Eye. So I think in this regard, the list actually did an okay job. It didn't kill it, but I don't think it's the best deck in the format any longer. And so I feel like that's fine. Moving on, Branded is a deck that I actually think I probably would play Branded before I would play Pure Snake Eye. I think Branded is in an interesting spot right now because Branded has not really lost much. And that's weird to say when Branded Fusion went from 3-1, but I don't think consistency was the issue with Branded. I don't think the issue was, hey, Branded is too consistent. Branded is like draws too many consistent hands because Branded Fusion is at 1 in Master Duel, and they even have it's 1 Branded opening and 2 Alubers. So Branded in Master Duel is significantly less consistent, and it's unironically a top tier deck in Master Duel since like ages. And this is nice. I think Branded with like there's 2 ways to play Branded. You can play a 60 card version with Grass. You can play a deck closer to 40, which is the one that I would suggest. But simply because they didn't hit Sanctifier or Gimmick Puppet, I think Branded is still very, very strong. It's very easy for that deck to access Branded Fusion. And at that point, it doesn't matter if you have 3 or 1. So I think Branded remains a top tier contender. Not the best deck in the format, but pretty solid. So that's that. Pearly is a deck that I included it, but I don't feel that great about it. It's all right. And I think that's exactly where I'm putting it. It might also just be a solid tier 2 deck depending on who's playing it. But I'm gonna be honest, the way I feel about Pearly is just like you're just making life harder for yourself if you play a deck like Pearly, because there's just other decks out there that do a lot of things better than Pearly and have an easier time. Like Pearly is not particularly good at playing through hand traps. Pearly is not particularly good at going second these days. Board breaker versions of Pearly are going to be somewhat okay, but I think hand traps are still the way to go, and that always kind of feels like a little gambly with Pearly. So I think Pearly's fine, especially because, as people are mentioning, it is a relatively cheap option. That's cool. And for that, it actually does a pretty good job. Like I think if you are just evaluating a bunch of like budget options, I think Pearly is one of the better ones of those. But overall, at high level competition, I think Pearly doesn't have a great chance of succeeding, so I'll put it here. Tearlament, and we will talk about Grass Piles in a moment, but pure like Tearlament, like 40, 45 cards ish, I don't like that much in the TCG at the moment. It depends a little bit on how popular Bestials are going to be, but I think Tier just doesn't do anything great at the moment. I think it's just all right. Yubel, in my opinion, elephant in the room, I think Yubel ends up being the best deck in the format now. I think Yubel now does the things that Snake Eyes used to do. Like Snake Eye was a deck that was very good at playing through hand traps, made very powerful boards, and also had a lot of really good lines to play around certain hand traps, especially including Nibiru, the Primal Being, which is one of the things that Snake Eyes will now have to really struggle with when it comes to deciding what kind of combo you go for. I think the options are very limited in that regard, which just doesn't apply to the Yubel deck. The Yubel deck barely lost anything. One opening of the Spirit Gates is sometimes, it can be annoying. It was a card that they played at usually 3 copies for good reason. So they lose something from this list. But the fact that Appaloosa is banned, I think helps Yubel more than anything else. Because the way I feel like it is going to be like people are going to play more Nibiru because that is the premier way on how you can beat decks like Snake Eye now is just Nibiru them in a good spot. And Yubel is a deck that doesn't care about Nibiru because it has Phantom of Yubel. So I think Yubel ends up being the best deck in the format. I think it makes the best boards now because Varudras, because the deck doesn't really care about Appaloosa being banned, and also because the Fiendsmith engine changed in a very significant way, which is that it still is good, but it gets weaker in non-Fiend decks. For Yubel, the Fiendsmith engine still does almost the same thing as it did before, because you're not going to miss Beatrice much because you can just go Aerial Eater. You're not going to miss Lacrima much because you can just go Aerial Eater. So I think Yubel is the top deck in the format, and there are some decks to rival it, but I think Yubel is going to be the best deck moving forward, and probably the my bet for the most represented deck in Top Cut at YCS Lil. Centurion is a deck that takes a pretty hefty hit from the Calamity ban. I like Centurion. I don't think now is the time for it. I mean, hand traps are going to be solid in this format, so that leaves a spot for it to be a good rogue deck. I just feel like the deck, even if it gets to play, does not create powerful enough boards. This is something that could change after Rage of the Abyss, because they do get that new level 8 Synchro, which is really powerful. For now, I think it remains a rogue deck. Maybe if you find the best list out there, you can make it a solid tier 2 deck, and I could see someone like maybe perform at regionals or YCSs with it. But I'm just comparing it to Centurion and Master Duel at the moment, and you actually have like access to Atri. But then again, all the other decks have like better tools than Centurion. I feel like it's just all right. Dragon Link, I only included because Trishula TTV, instead of uploading, I think, a Banlist reaction, just uploaded a freaking Dragon Link combo now with like Rose Dragon and Adventure cards. I don't really know what to say about this. Some people seem to think it could be a solid tier 2 option, which, if I'm looking at the decks that I'm putting into the top tier and top tier contender category, I could see Dragon Link being solid simply based on the fact that like it plays a lot of Bestials. I assume. I don't know if the Adventure Rose Dragon version actually would play Bestials. I'm not sure. But if Bestials are good in the format, which I think they will be all right, then I guess Dragon Link is okay. But I'm leaning more towards putting it into the rogue deck category. I think Trishula is probably on some cope there, but feel free to try it and maybe prove me wrong. All right. Luan the Reese. Shifter stayed at 3. But I just think, let's talk about another Shifter deck right away. I think Ritual Beast is just better Flu. I don't think Flu is bad. That's why, I mean, this category down here, all of those decks I don't think are bad. If I thought these decks were bad, I would put them into the lowest category. But I also just don't feel like there is a reason to play Flu right now over countless other decks in the format. Like, for example, Ritual Beast is a deck that either goes here or here. Unironically, the deck has had a pretty good showing at the EUWCQ last format. It is one of the few decks from last format. Like, if you look at the top cut from the EUWCQ, there's only very few decks that were basically not hit at all. I guess Ritual Beast makes Appaloosa sometimes. So that's a small hit, I guess. But for the most part, you know, Yubel lost opening, lost Branded Fusion, Snake Eye got some hits, Tenpai got some hits. Ritual Beast was a deck that was also already successful and pretty much stays the same. So in that regard, I think it is a top tier contender. I don't think Ritual Beast will end up being the best deck in the format by any means, but I think it is a very, very viable strategy. And here's the first thing where I need your guys' help, because I am not an expert on the Gimmick Puppet deck. I've been told, and you guys now in the Twitch chat when we're recording this live, please tell me if this is correct or not. I've been told that with the 2 limits to the Gimmick Puppet exceeds, the deck can still FTK, but it is less consistent now, is what I heard. Because I heard that the field spell still FTKs, but some other cards that did the FTK beforehand now don't do it anymore. So if you don't draw the field spell, you need to draw like combinations of multiple cards. The FTK is more fragile as well. Okay. In that case, once again, I don't have much experience on this. There's probably going to be, if you watch this on YouTube, you can probably scroll down into the comments and see some Gimmick Puppet expert saying that what I'm about to say is complete and utter garbage that I'm about to yap. But I personally think before this list, it was a solid tier 2 somewhere, and now it's probably just going to be like here is where I would personally interpret with the information that I've been given without knowing if the information is 100% accurate. But yeah, if you know better than me, feel free to enlighten me. Let's talk about grass. And I'm using grass here as a placeholder for a bunch of different decks that I could imagine people playing. I could imagine people playing 60 card Horus Tearlament with grass, for example. Basically, to put this into context, there is a those sort of decks are a very viable strategy in Master Duel. They are not top tier. They are not the best deck in Master Duel. But every once in a while, when you play ranked, even at the highest level, you will run into people playing like a 60 card, all gas, no break. It's going to main deck triple tactics thrust. So basically going second, you have access to at least 4 copies of grass, which can really turn the game around. If you go second and you resolve grass, you can probably break most boards. And that sort of stuff is a viable deck in Master Duel, whether it's Tearlament or people are playing grass in Branded to just mill like Retribution and some other card advantage cards. And in the TCG, we also have other options that aren't even in Master Duel. We have the Lightsworn cards, for example. You know, I could see someone showing up with 60 card Thrust, Grass, Lightsworns, and just try to cook. Even though that sort of stuff feels very, very high rolly and Gamba and all that kind of stuff, that does not necessarily mean it's bad. I think those kind of decks are something to mess around with. And I think that some sort of grass pile could honestly be a solid tier 2 option. I think it's one of the things that if you don't like any of the top decks in the format and you just want to go to a tournament, have some fun, and potentially do well if it's your day, I think those kind of decks are the ones you're looking for, and I think they're going to be very fun. But also good enough, right? It's scary to go, even like, think about it this way. If your opponent is playing a 60 card all gas no breaks combo deck, it's really scary to go second against it. But then when you also know that your opponent has thrust for grass access, then you also feel scared when you go first, right? So in that regard, I think it's interesting because it puts that kind of position, it puts you in a position where going first, your deck is already good, and going second, you just have that extra benefit of thrust for grass for auto win. So I think that's solid. I think that's solid. Chimera is also, I think, a solid tier 2 deck. Chimera, Fiendsmith, with like Nightmare Apprentice and all that kind of stuff. Like basically the deck that Dinka Bui piloted to a very good finish at German Nationals this year, with added Fiendsmith cards into the mix and all that. I think it's pretty good. I like the Chimera cards. I think they're pretty strong. I think it's one of those archetypes that is overshadowed by the design of the Yubel cards and the Snake Eye cards, unfortunately, because I think Chimera, like if it wasn't for Snake Eye and Yubel, we would all be like thinking like, oh, how powerful are these Chimera cards? They're so good. But like because Snake Eye and Yubel are the way they are, it's like it's rough, but it's still a very good deck. Kashtira feels like a slightly worse version of Fluandereeze. They lose 1 prosperity. All of these decks lose 1 prosperity, and that hurts. I think before I would play Kashtira in terms of power level, I'd rather play Flu. But before I would play Flu, I would rather play Ritual Beast. Is my order on the shifter decks in the format. Labyrinth, Equation Cannon Labyrinth is going to be a solid tier 2 deck, I think. Yubel has a little bit of a rough time dealing with back row, even though they do have Varudras and they have Escape of the Unchained. But I do think that in the TCG, like, basically this is the best version of any trap deck you're going to get. Like, being able to just set 5 into those boards is nice. I think Labyrinth is just all right. Like, no, it's not solid. It's a solid deck. I think Labyrinth is solid and could be viable in this upcoming format, but not part of the top tier decks for sure. It also lost access to 2 copies of Skill Drain, which is a big deal sometimes. Like, especially going second, Skill Drain was one of the better cards you could set. With like when you go set 5, it was very good if one of those was Skill Drain, because then you could like activate a card, they chain Varudras and you skill drain it, and that was like all she wrote. So like that was nice. And losing that definitely hurts. I think the deck is still overall playable though. Melodious. Melodious, in my opinion, is like a bottom of tier 2 deck. I think one thing that benefits Melodious is the fact that you get more mileage out of your hand traps again. Like, the Fiendsmith engine is getting weaker, and Snake Eye's ability to play through hand traps is also getting a little bit weaker, simply because they have less access to cards like Snake Eye Ash. If they have to start at their turn with a Diabell Star because they didn't draw a normal summon, then using like some hand traps on it gets a lot more effective. And Melodious is a Melodious is a pretty good hand trap deck, right? So yeah, Dominus Purge, pretty good Melodious boost. That too, right? The deck does not care about Dominus Purge. That is nice. Memento, in my opinion, is a top tier contender. I think this is one of those instances where this deck still makes very good use of the Fiendsmith cards. And it already was a very powerful deck that was just like, basically Memento still does insane one-card combos if you really think about it. Like, this is why as well, we were watching Vlad's deck profile from the Euros top 64, and when he showed off his combo, I was like, you know, the fact that this is not the best deck in the game is crazy, right? The fact that like the Memento one-card combos and such are not like considered to be the strongest that a deck can do is wild to me. And it really shows how far they went with one-card combos in terms of like Snake Eye and Yubel. But now that Snake Eye has been toned down a little bit, I think pure Memento might actually just be a very viable top-tier deck. I have to try it more. This is just an impression, once again. It's just my impression of the deck without having played it much with the Fiendsmith cards. So take this one with a grain of salt, because out of all those decks here that I'm sorting into the top tier, this is definitely the deck I have the least amount of experience with. But I think it's scary, to say the least. Runic, and this is specifically Runic Stun. We're going to talk about other Runic versions later. But Runic Stun, in my opinion, is scary still, obviously. At least here, maybe even here. I think, as always with Runic, it's gonna depend on, will people prepare for this deck? I'm gonna be honest with you, losing 2 skill drains for this deck is good. But for Runic Stun specifically, I feel like it doesn't matter that much, because the deck, like, it is one of the few decks where you can just replace it with other floodgates, especially with like monster floodgates, right? Like, your floodgates in this deck don't all have to be traps, which in a deck like Snake Eye or something, like, it needed to be a trap card. You didn't want to normal summon one of those cards, but like in Runic Stun, it can just be an Inspector Border or whatever, right? Or you can play like Tyrant's Tirade or something. So like, there is ways for Runic Stun to make up for it. And if it's just like, I don't know, playing like Upstart Goblins instead to draw other floodgates or whatever, I think it's just going to be a matter of, will people respect Runic Stun in deck building? I think chances are that people are aware of this deck and will have outs to it. Like, I don't know, Cosmic Cyclone is always a popular card. And if people feel like Runic Stun is popular, then people will play more Cosmic Cyclone. And so on and so forth. But Runic Stun is just scary, you know? Like, it is just a scary deck. And so it's gonna stay in the meta for sure. Salamangrate, ironically, thank you, Eddie. Ironically, I think Salamangrate is not bad. This deck feels like relatively similar to something like Illusion, where if it gets to play the game, it makes really powerful boards. Because you lock yourself into Fire/Cybers, depending on which kind of lines you go for, you will not have the ability in this deck to play the Fiendsmith cards, which is a downside. But overall, this deck is pretty good. It loses to Nibiru very hard, though. It loses to Nibiru very hard though, and I think that's what's gonna hold it back from being better than this. There's no way you can have Salamangreat above Melodious. Don't pay too much attention to the order here. I'm just chucking them in while I'm talking. Like it's arbitrary for the most part. Like yeah, Melodious is probably better, but it's fine. The Salamangreat deck makes a really scary board. And the Salamangreat deck, unironically, there's two things. There's there's two things about Salad that I like. The one thing is that I actually it's not actually that budget, right? I was about to say it's budget, but then I remembered Raging Phoenix being like a 2 or 3 of in this deck, so that's annoying. But other than that, it's got a pretty good matchup into stun. If you're ever worried about that, like if you're trying to play a combo deck, but you want one that's good into stun, like Salamangreat with Salamangreat Foxy is actually quite solid because you can pop the face-up cards. And you can also set up, like, if you set up a Salamangreat Rage for 4 or something, then you always win going first. Like, no questions asked. So it's pretty good in that regard. Elbot, thank you for the 5 gifties. Appreciate that. Thank you. I will allow this to interrupt my tier list recording. That's fine. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right. So that's Salad. And then we've got Tenpai. In my opinion, this list did to Tenpai, for now, what it should have done. I think Tenpai loses consistency. I think Tenpai loses a lot of its interactive, like non-interactive, like properties, right? Where you can just activate the field spell and ignore everything that your opponent does. I think Tenpai is going to be very good after Rage of the Abyss again with Molcharmi Fuvaros. I think for now, when I'm looking at these other decks up here, I'm not that scared of Tenpai if they don't have the field spell. I don't think Tenpai can ever be below top 3. I disagree with that. I don't think Tenpai is a top 3 deck in this format. I don't think so. It's good. It is good. I don't think... maybe that's my bias because I don't like Tenpai that much conceptually, because I feel like Tenpai is always way much more about your opponent's ability to play the game than your own. I always feel like if my opponent knows how to interact with Tenpai, then it gets much weaker. And I feel like this is an issue that gets bigger when the field spell is at 1, because then my opponent gets to interact with my deck more freely, and that's just not good for Tenpai. But it is a really good deck. It is a really good deck. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit. Maybe it needs to be like here. But I don't think it's a top 3 deck. I don't think it's a top 3 deck at the moment. White Forest. Let's talk about runic versions before we talk about White Forest. Because it's kind of like in the same boat. I've only included White Forest Runic because, in my opinion, I mean, people keep asking me about this every once in a while. What I think the best Runic version in the format is at the moment. I think White Forest Runic is by far the best version of a Runic combo deck, and it remains that way, even with losing 2 skill drains. That doesn't really matter. Skill Drain was a good card in that deck, but you can replace it with other good cards. Skill Drain was not needed to win most of the games. And I think Runic White Forest is one of those decks that I was talking about earlier that's similar to Ritual Beast. It was already able to perform to some extent in the last format, but it just didn't really receive a hit. And that makes it better comparatively to the rest of the format. I mean, you guys know that I'm always going to play White Forest Runic before I'm going to play Tenpai. So I personally think this deck is very good. I'd put it somewhere here. It is definitely on my list of decks that I'm going to take into consideration for YCS Lil. Shocker, I know. Josh believes in Runic decks. Tell the world. I think this deck's good. I like it. I think it's strong. I think it's way easier to outgrind Snake Eye now with only 1 Poplar. I think not having to worry about Appaloosa at all. I think also not having to worry about Lacrima Burn is one of, like, people that play Runic understand. People that are not playing Runic will never understand how much it matters that you can't just get Lacrima burned with like 4 minutes left and then you won't have a battle phase and you basically can't win. That matters so much. I feel like it's very hard to overstate how much that matters for this deck. So that's pretty good. I like this deck. I'm gonna try it for a little. Maybe I'll just play it. And yeah. Other White Forest variations, or let's say other runic variations that I think are worth mentioning. I think Runic Bestial has the added benefit of Bestials being pretty good in the format, but I don't think that's enough reason to play it over White Forest, but it is not bad. And then another version that I wanted to mention, honorable mention, Red Rose Runic, with now access to triple Red Rose Dragon, is also pretty cool. The problem with that deck is you basically, if you don't open Red Rose or Rux Rose Dragon, you don't have a play, and you only have 6 copies of those cards. And so that's annoying. But other than that, I think the deck's pretty cool. Feel free to try it out if you like. It's playable. Pure White Forest, I think, is like a toy card, kind of toy box, toy soldier, toy tank, White Forest, try to pop off, whatever. It's not bad. Somewhere in the middle of tier 2, I would put it, I think. And all right. Rescue Ace. Another solid way to play a fire deck, I think. Nothing exceptionally great about it. Not bad though. Like very scary when it goes first. Very hard to break the setup. Also not that easy to hand trap, depending on how they open. I don't hate the Rescue Ace deck. I don't love it either. And here is the, in my opinion, best version of Snake Eye, which is Snake Eye Fire King. I think Snake Eye Fire King is the way to go if you're trying to play a Snake Eye deck for YCS Lil. I don't think this deck is better than Yubel, but I think it is good. Volcanics is missing compared to Master Duel, which is why a lot of people are asking right now, even without Volcanics. I think so, yes. I think Volcanics for this deck is not mandatory for it to be good, especially because compared to Master Duel, you can make up for those Volcanicses, which are it's a very good starter, but like you get more Wanteds and you get an extra bonfire. So I think this deck, instead of starting with Volcanics, you can just start with Wanted or Bonfire, and that's fine. Like you just have more access to your Snake Eye cards. I think sometimes you're gonna miss Volcanics in the deck, like not being able to pop it to get out another level 8 can be annoying. Overall, I think this deck is gonna be good though, for multiple reasons. First of all, it's very consistent because you've got 3 Wanted, 3 Bonfire, 3 Witch, Onyx, Ash, so many starters. You've got very strong grind game, and the most important part is you have very, very clean Nibiru lines, which that is one of the problems with, I think, pure Snake Eye, is there are some ways you can play around Nibiru by like pivoting into the Fiendsmith cards and making a Caesar and something, but Nibiru still hurts in those lines if it drops before the Caesar, and like it's not super reliable. Fire King Snake Eye can basically always outplay Nibiru, and it's much easier. Basically, it's what everyone who's been playing this deck in Master Duel knows this, but Nibiru does not feel that good against Fire King Snake Eye unless you can pair it with another hand trap, which is basically the way it's been for pure Snake Eye in the TCG those last couple of formats. Like that spot in the game of combo deck that can beat Nib with 1 to 2 card combos relatively easily now belongs to Yubel and Fire King Snake Eye, in my opinion. Which makes those two decks, in my opinion, the decks that can make the most powerful boards while also playing around Nibiru the best. And that's why I'm putting those two into top tier. And I don't think it's close between pure Snake Eye and Snake Eye Fire King. I would basically, my first impression is I would always play Fire King Snake Eye over pure Snake Eye. But yeah, that's just how I feel like at the moment. We have got sprites, which are just pretty meh right now. I don't know. I don't even know. This is a leftover from like last year's tier lists where I would always include sprite and always have something to say about sprite. At the moment, I don't really see. Yeah, sprite just feels power crap. Maybe I shouldn't include that much. Vanquish Soul is a deck that I would play before I would play Flu or Kashtira. So for me personally, it's here. I like this deck. I think you play it with Shifter. It's not bad. But I think this is a little bit of cope, I think. This is me being biased because I like this deck. I find it cool. I think in reality it's a little bit lower than this. Like, I don't think it's better than something like, it's probably not better than something like Centurion or Dragon Link. Let's be real. I like this deck, but in the reality, it's probably here. It's probably here. You probably got to stop coping on it. It's not a terrible deck, but it's also just like not that strong, right? Like, even if you go uninterrupted, your end board isn't that oppressive. Most decks can play through it, and if you don't draw Shifter, your deck is just like very mediocre. So that's unfortunate, but I like it. Voiceless Voice goes next to these other tier 2 hand trap piles. Like, solid, it's got solid 1-card combos, solid room for hand traps. So it basically entirely depends on how good are those in the format. I think it is still a hand trap format, so I think you can still play Voiceless Voices if you want to. But it's fallen off quite hard ever since it released, right? I feel like it released in a very solid position, and then it's just like every other deck has been getting better and better and better and better, but Voiceless has just pretty much stayed the same. They got the continuous spell to add back, but that's it. That was the second wave of Voiceless Voice support, was 1 card that was playable, which is pretty whack, and doesn't change that much about the deck. Like, it gives it good grind game, but like most decks already have that, so it's nothing super special about Voiceless. It's okay though. It's okay. It's not a bad deck. It's not a bad deck. It's much weaker than it is in Master Duel though, because it's one of the decks that benefits a lot from Maxi in Master Duel because it doesn't get impacted by it that much. In the TCG, we don't have that kind of thing. So yeah, I am sure that I've missed some decks that you guys are interested in if you're watching this on YouTube. Feel free to comment down below the deck that's missing, or the deck that you believe in for this format, and I'll make sure to try and answer as many comments as possible, as always. So yeah, I hope you find this helpful. Once again, keep in mind and take it with a grain of salt, because this is my very first impression without having tested. Once I return from the World Championship this upcoming weekend, we will be going ahead and testing a lot of these decks and actually trying to see if those things that the impressions that I have are correct or not. It remains to be seen, but I hope this is a good first initial help for you to understand the position of decks in the format. And when I'm looking at this, honestly, I feel like after having thought about a lot of these decks and their position in the meta now, I can't help but notice that the ban list did change some things, at least in the way I perceive these decks. Whether it ends up being true is another question. But like, Snake Eye Fiendsmith has fallen from the best deck in the format to just like a good deck. Tenpai, in my opinion, has gotten weaker. Snake Eye Fire King is still a Snake Eye deck, but it is a different deck than before. Yubel has remained at the top. That's the one thing, but that was kind of predictable, to be honest. And then there's been some shakeup in the tier 2 category. Grass decks may join the mix. Decks like White Forest Runic, Spiritual Beast, Memento, they benefit from this list, I feel like. So it remains to be seen whether this list is good in the short term. I think in the short term it's fine. I think Rage of the Abyss is gonna flip this whole thing on its head again, and then it's a different beast. But until then, I think it's actually not that bad. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Will you make a basic guide for Runic White Forest like you did for Fiendsmith Snake Eye, Fire King Snake Eye? I could. I haven't had much time recently to do any like dedicated content that much. I've just been kind of streaming without much prep, simply because I've been so focused on Worlds. But once I'm back from Worlds and maybe have the ability to like rest up for a couple of days, I might look into a lot more of that kind of stuff and see if I can do it. Yeah. We'll see. I feel like it'd be a good time for it. Because I'm sure that now with Snake Eye being weaker, people are gonna look at alternatives, or maybe just people don't want to play Yubel or Snake Eye. They might look into alternatives because Runic White Forest, it's not cheap, but it's a lot cheaper, right? Like, what's the Runic package is cheap, and then like you need like what 3 LZs. You do need SP, but I guess that's true for most decks. Yeah, LZ is still like 20 something. But it's like in a format where every Fiendsmith engine is like over $200. I feel like White Forest Runic qualifies as a deck that's relatively affordable in relation. But yeah. All right. All right. And with that, guys, I know it's short. I am sorry. But thank you for all the birthday wishes. But we're leaving it at that for today. I have to get ready for Worlds. I want to meet up with my parents and some friends for my birthday. I know it's a short stream. And it is the last stream of the week. But I am getting more and more excited for the World Championships, and I'm leaving tomorrow. So I gotta where's Stun? Stun was on there. It was I was talking about Runic Stun. So yeah, I gotta pack my stuff for Worlds. I gotta go see my parents for my birthday. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the birthday wishes. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you have a great time on the weekend watching the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championships, whether it's TCG or Master Duel or Duel Links or Rush Duel or all of them combined. I hope you have a good time. Hope it's going to be a fun stream for you guys. And I will see you guys next week. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for all the support. As always, we'll try our best to become the first ever back-to-back Master Duel World Champions. We'll see. If it works, great. If not, then also fine. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you all for cheering for us in advance already. And I'll see you guys next week.